Hello, my name is Catherine, and I am reading to you from the book The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Peale. We're doing Chapter 10, Part 1, Power to Solve Personal Problems. I want to tell you about some fortunate people who found the right solutions to their problems. They followed a simple but highly practical plan, and in each case, the outcome was a happy and successful one. These people are in no sense different from you. They had the same problems and difficulties that you have, but they found a formula which helped them to get the right answers to the difficult questions facing them. This same formula applied by you can get similar results. First, let me tell you the story of a husband and wife, longtime friends of mine. For years, Bill, the husband, worked hard until he finally reached the rung next to the top of the ladder in his company. He was in line for the presidency of the firm and felt certain that upon retirement of the president he would be advanced to that position. There was no apparent reason why his ambition should not be realized, for by ability, training, and experience he was qualified. Besides, he had been led to believe he was to be chosen. However, when the appointment was made, he was bypassed. A man was brought in from the outside to fill the post. I arrived in his city just after the blow had fallen. The wife, Mary, was in an especially vindictive state of mind. At dinner, she bitterly outlined all that she would like to tell them. The intense disappointment, humiliation, frustration, focused in a burning anger which she poured out to her husband and me. Bill, on the contrary, was very quiet, obviously hurt. Disappointed and bewildered, he took it courageously. Being essentially a gentle person, it was not surprising that he failed to become angry or violent in his reaction. Mary wanted him to resign immediately. She urged him to tell them off and tell them plenty, then quit. He seemed disinclined to take this action, saying perhaps it was for the best and he would go along with the new man and help him in any way that he could. That attitude, admittedly, might be difficult, but he had worked for the company for so long that he would not be happy elsewhere. And besides, he felt that in the secondary position, the company would continue to use him. The wife then turned to me and asked what I would do. I told her that I would, like herself, undoubtedly feel disappointed and hurt, but that I would try not to allow hate to creep in, for animosity not only corrodes the soul but disorganizes thought processes as well. I suggested that what we needed was divine guidance, a wisdom beyond ourselves in this situation. There was such an emotional content in the problem that we might possibly be incapable of thinking the matter through objectively and rationally. I suggested, therefore, that we have a few minutes of quietness. No one saying anything, that we sit quietly in an attitude of fellowship and prayer, turning our thoughts to the one who said, Where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. I pointed out that there were 3 of us, and if we sought to achieve the spirit of being gathered in His name, He would also be present to quiet us and show us what to do. It was not easy for the wife to accommodate herself to the mood suggested, but basically she was an intelligent, high-type person, and she joined in the plan. Presently, after a few quiet moments, I suggested that we join hands, and even though we were in a public restaurant, I would quietly offer a prayer. In the prayer, I asked for guidance. I requested peace of mind for Bill and Mary, and I went a step further and even asked God's blessings upon the new appointee. I also prayed that Bill would be able to fit in with the new administration and give more effective service than before. After the prayer, we sat quiet for a time. Then, with a sigh, the wife said, "Yes, I guess that is the way to do it. When I knew you were coming to dinner with us, I feared that you would tell us to take a Christian position on this. Frankly, I didn't feel like doing that. I was boiling inwardly, but of course, I realized that the right answer to this problem is to be found through that approach. I will try it faithfully, as difficult as it may be." She smiled wanly, but the animus was gone. From time to time I checked with my friends and found that while everything was not entirely as they desired, they gradually became fairly contented under the new arrangement. They were able to overcome their disappointment and ill will. Bill even confided to me that he liked the new man and in a way enjoyed working with him. He told me that the new president often called him in for consultation and seemed to lean on him. Mary was nice to the president's wife, and in fact they went to the fullest extent to be cooperative. 2 years passed. One day I arrived in their city and telephoned them. "Oh, I am so excited I can hardly speak," Mary said. I commented that anything that could put her in that state of mind must be of unusual importance. Ignoring this remark, she cried, "Oh, the most wonderful thing has happened. Mr. So-and-so," naming the president, "has been selected by another company at a big promotion for a special job which will take him out of our organization into a much better position, and," she posed the question, "guess what? Bill has just been notified that he is now president of the company. Come over right away and let the 3 of us give thanks together." Later, as we sat together, Bill said, "Do you know, I'm beginning to realize that Christianity isn't theoretical after all. We have solved a problem according to well-defined spiritually scientific principles. I shudder to think," he said, "of the terrible mistake I would have made had we not gone at this problem according to the formula contained in the teachings of God." "Who in the world," he asked, "is responsible for the silly idea that Christianity is impractical? Never again will I let a problem come up without attacking it in just the way the 3 of us solved this one." Well, several years have passed, and Mary and Bill have had other problems, and to each of them they have applied the same technique, invariably with good results. by the put it in God's hands method, they have learned to solve their problems right. Another effective technique in problem solving is the simple device of conceiving of God as a partner. One of the basic truths taught by the Bible is that God is with us. In fact, Christianity begins with the concept, for when Jesus Christ was born, he was called Emmanuel, meaning God is with us. Christianity teaches that in all the difficulties, problems, and circumstances of this life, God is close by. We can talk to him, lean upon him, get help from him, and have the inestimable benefit of his interest, support, and help. Practically everybody believes in a general way that this is true, and many have experienced the reality of this faith. In getting correct solutions to your problems, however, it is necessary to go a step further than believing this, for one must actually practice the idea of presence. Practice believing that God is as real and actual as your wife or your business partner or your close friend. Practice talking matters over with him. Believe that God hears and gives thought to your problem. Assume that he impresses upon your mind through consciousness the proper ideas and insights necessary to solve your problems. Definitely believe that in these solutions there will be no error, but that you will be guided in actions according to truth, which results in right outcomes. A businessman stopped me one day following a Rotary Club meeting in a western city at which I had made a speech. He told me that something he had read in one of my newspaper columns had, as he put it, completely revolutionized his attitude and saved his business. Naturally, I was interested and pleased that any little thing I had said would bring about such a splendid result. I have been having quite a difficult time in my business, he said. In fact, I was beginning to be a very serious question as to whether I could save my business. A series of unfortunate circumstances together with market conditions, regulatory procedures, and dislocations to the economy of the country generally affected my line profoundly. I read this article of yours in which you advanced the idea of taking God in as a partner. I think you used the phrase, effect a merger with God. When I first read that, it seemed to me a rather cracked brain idea. How could a man on earth, a human being, take God as a partner? Besides, I had always thought of God as a vast being, so much bigger than man that I was like an insect in his sight. And yet, you were saying that I should take him as a partner. The idea seemed preposterous. Then a friend gave me one of your books, and I found similar ideas scattered all through it. You told actual life stories about people who followed this advice. They all seemed to be sensible people, but I was unconvinced. I always had that idea that ministers and idealistic theorists, that they know nothing about business and practical affairs. So I sort of wrote it off, he said with a smile. However, a funny thing happened one day. I went to my office so depressed that I actually thought perhaps the best thing for me to do would be to blow my brains out and get away from all these problems, which seems completely to floor me. Then into my mind came this idea of taking God as a partner. I shut the door, sat in my chair, and put my head on my arms on the desk. I might as well confess to you that I hadn't prayed more than a dozen times in so many years. However, I certainly did pray on this occasion. I told the Lord that I had heard this idea about taking him in as a partner, that I wasn't actually sure what it meant or how one did it. I told him I was sunk, that I couldn't get any ideas except panicky ones, that I was baffled, bewildered, and very discouraged. I said, Lord, I can't offer you much in the way of a partnership, but please join with me and help me. I don't know how you can help me, but I want to be helped. So I now put my business, myself, my family, and my future in your hands. Whatever you say goes. I don't even know how you are going to tell me what to do, but I am ready to hear and will follow your advice if you will make it clear. Well, he continued. That was the prayer. After I finished praying, I sat at my desk. I guess I expected something miraculous to happen, but nothing happened. However, I did suddenly feel quiet and rested. I actually had a feeling of peacefulness. Nothing out of the ordinary occurred that day, nor that night. But next day, when I went to my office, I had a brighter and happier feeling than usual. I began to feel confident that things would turn out right. It was hard to explain why I felt that way. Nothing was any different. In fact, you might even say things were a shade worse. But I was different, at least a little different. This feeling of peacefulness stayed with me and I began to feel better. I kept praying each day and talked to God as I would to a partner. There were no church prayers, just plain man-to-man talk. Then one day in my office, all of a sudden, an idea popped up in my mind. It was like toast popping up in a toaster. I said to myself, well, what do you know about that? For it was something that had never occurred to me, but I knew instantly that it was just the method to follow. Why? I had never thought of it before. I haven't the slightest idea. My mind was too tied up, I guess. I hadn't been functioning mentally. I immediately followed the hunch. Then he stopped. No, it was no hunch. It was my partner talking to me. I immediately put this idea into operation and things began to roll. New ideas began to flow out of my mind, and despite conditions, I began to get the business back on an even keel. Now the general situation has improved considerably, and I am out of the woods. Then he said, I don't know anything about preaching or about writing the kind of books you write, or any books for that matter. But let me tell you this. Whenever you get a chance to talk to a businessman, tell them that if they will take God as a partner in their business, they will get more good ideas than they can ever use. And they can turn those ideas into assets. I don't merely mean money, he said, although a way to get a good return on your investment, I believe, is to get God-guided ideas. But tell them that the God partnership method is the way to get their problems solved right. This incident is just one of many similar demonstrations of the law of divine human relationship working itself out in practical affairs. I cannot emphasize too strongly the effectiveness of this technique of problem solving. It has produced amazing results in the many cases coming under my observation. Well, I'm going to stop with that for today. I hope that helped. My name is Catherine, and if you like what I do, please do subscribe and share. And of course, like my videos. Thank you. Bye-bye.